Hi everyone, welcome to the Racist War on Everything, episode 268. Hope you filled up your tanks last week. I hope some of you have some jerry cans that you can fill up. I'm not supposed to be advocating hoarding though, am I?
No.
No, Nolsey, you know that you were saying that you were so smart to have gotten like a diesel car. I mean, isn't there a diesel shortage now as well?
Oh no. I think there was like this one boomer graph. It's just like it's like, oh yeah, like the end product is the guy with avocados on toast, and it's like, oh, so how does it get there? Diesel, 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 diesel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
agriculture runs on diesel. The thing is,
yes, that's what the
you can
farmers
also
kept saying.
you can make diesel at home if need be.
Okay, but when Chris Bowen was talking about opening like the reserves that Australia has that are not very big, by the way. It was basically just a whole heap of petrol that he was able to release, but no
Yeah.
diesel. And all the farmers were saying, well, wait, hold on, what about us? You realize we actually mainly operate on diesel, not petrol. So,
I'm not even joking. By the end of today, when I went to go and fuel up, my local service station was selling diesel for $2.80 a gallon.
shit.
Yeah, that's not a fun time.
Yeah, I mean, look, last week I filled up, I think it was $1.89, which I thought was expensive. Then I had a look today, and it's like $2.30. So tomorrow is cheap Tuesday, but I doubt that's cheap Tuesday is really
Oh
going to be a
yeah,
thing for a while.
that was a cycle, and I don't think that cycle. Yeah, I don't think that cycle is going to survive this extinction.
Yeah, in situations like this, those kind of regular price cycles don't really apply. So yeah, maybe I'll just get fuel whenever I'm running low. Anyway, guys, we'll get into it. And look, obviously, what's going on in the Middle East is dominating the headlines, and a lot of people have suddenly learned about this strait called the Strait of Hormuz,
Yep.
and how vital it is to global energy supply. The US is talking about sending escorts now to make sure tankers can pass through there uninhibited. But look, even if they did that, that's obviously still going to increase the price of oil. Um, I mean, if you increase the cost of operation, which of course escorts that would do that, you're going to push up the overall price. So, unfortunately, I think we're just going to have to absorb this for a while. The reverberations of which will be felt once this conflict ends as well. There'll be certainly a bit of a hangover from all of this. But, I just wanted to address here the idea of, is Australia actually at war right now? And the technical answer, if you want one, is yes, we are. Because we have sent air defenses to various Gulf countries, such as the United Arab Emirates. And their job is to defend those countries against Iranian missile attacks. They're there to intercept them. Now, even though we're not, say, out there bombing Iran or firing rockets at Iran, well, according to international law, the rules of engagement, we are actually at war with Iran.
Yeah. No, we're involved. Well, involved on the ass end, but yeah, that doesn't make all that much of a difference in that case.
Yeah, we've got our soldiers on the submarines, but they just kind of they play poker while the sub is like firing rockets. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, we are. Now, is this actually a legal war? Probably not. I mean, just like any war that pretty much the United States starts, The president never seeks congressional approval for it, and of course, in this case, it was done in secret so that they would have the element of surprise, of course. But I don't think Iran was actually surprised by this, and some people put it this way: like Iran has actually been preparing for this since 1979. I think that's
Oh
very
yeah,
true.
since the first revolution. I mean, like they always knew. God, the Ayatollah before Kamili was
The one
basically
they
more
just
or less
killed.
saying that. No. Yes, the one the one the most recent passing one.
Yeah.
Even said as much, post revolution that they would get into a conflict with what they called the Great West at the time, which
Yeah.
yes did include the big and small Satan, as they put in their terms.
Yeah, and the idea that there's like some kind of central leadership command, and if you were to simply take that out, you basically destroyed the regime. Well, no, I mean the Iranians have thought of that as well. So that typical Jewish tactic of leadership decapitation, doesn't really work. I mean, they'll always do it. They'll always like target the leader, but that does not mean you're going to see the regime fall. And in fact, now they've got his son is the new supreme leader. And remember this: this is a guy who not only has had his father killed in the attack, but his mother and his sister
Mm.
were killed in
Yes.
that attack as well, right? He would be one fucking pissed off dude. So, killing his dad, you've now put in a leader who is going to be so much more extreme and pissed off. And I'd say that you've basically just solidified support for the regime. I mean, this is what happens when you're attacked by foreign entities. People tend to rally around their leaders and
Yep.
say, you're the ones who are protecting us against these foreign invaders. And it's hard to see it any other way, especially considering Israel is involved in all of this as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, how many times have you like read a book on statecraft and it's just like, oh yeah, people didn't necessarily like this leader or didn't like the leader at all, and they went to war and they were literally like codified as one of the nation's heroes.
Okay, so
Hell, that
pretty much all the discussion in Australia has not really been as to like our involvement or the legality of the war. It's been on fuel prices. Now, Chris Bowen said for the past week that there was no need to panic. He encouraged people not to panic and therefore not to hoard petrol. Good luck with that message. That'll work just as well as what it did in back when COVID was on, and people were grabbing the toilet paper like fucking mad. Apparently, a lot of Bunnings stores have sold out of jerry cans. So
I actually unironically have a photo of guys using grunt straps or ratchet straps to tie a rain collection tank to a trailer, and they were filling up the rain collection tank with petrol. I am not joking. I have that photo.
Yeah, no, it doesn't surprise me. I'm still not going to do it. I don't like the idea of having lots of cans of petrol around. And that, who knows, the cops might accuse me of like planning a terrorist attack with it or something, So, but look, as the days went on and as, prices continued to go up and supplies started to be choked, Chris Bowen, our energy minister, did actually come out and declare officially that we have a national crisis in regards to fuel supply. That's both in terms of petrol and diesel.
Yep.
So last I heard, like prices are actually well above $100 per barrel, and it might even get to $200. So God knows, how much that's going to push our prices up. Certainly a hell of a lot.
Well, personally, again, I saw $2.80, and there was another photo that got sent to me, which was $3.38 for your 91 octane petrol. But that was in semi-rural New South Wales.
Right, and there's actually been a lot of rural petrol stations that have just completely run out, or they're rationing it, or they're only supplying it to emergency service vehicles, things like that. Now, I actually read this interesting article in the Australian, and it was talking about a plan that Bill Shorten, the former opposition leader for Labor, had back in 2019. And it was, a plan to actually save fuel in further reserves in Australia, because the reserves we have are not very big. I've seen figures like some people say, like, if we were to power the entire country with our reserves, it would last 1 week. So, in other words, we really don't have it that much. And he was actually basically modeling, this proposal was based on how we save gas here in WA, where we do actually have quite good reserves. And that was introduced by the Carpenter Labor government, 20 years back, something like that, quite a long time ago. And since then, a lot of eastern states have been basically asking themselves, why didn't we do this? Because now that they're dealing with all this unreliable green energy, they have to dig into their gas reserves. So, of course, Labor's overall economic platform in 2019 was considered to be untenable because so many aspects of it were rejected by voters, particularly the stuff on franking credits, if we remember that. That was actually another one of Chris Bowen's ideas. This was back when he was Shadow Treasurer. And that was also when he said, well, if you don't like the policy, don't vote for us. Well, that's exactly what they did, Chris. He basically nuked his own leadership ambitions forever at that point. But because that economic platform was deemed untenable, well, Labor pretty much rewrote everything, and that included the plan to enlarge our fuel supplies, our fuel reserves. The Morrison government also never took up that kind of an idea. So now that we're in a crisis like this, maybe now, finally, the government will actually have its hand forced, and they will have a much better and stricter program in terms of making energy companies contribute to our energy reserves. I certainly hope they do anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, it just makes sense. It just makes sense.
I don't think we're actually going to have the typical 3-hour length episode for you today, because there's actually not all that much political news. Because things have been so dominated by the Middle East right now. But there's still you'll get at least 2 hours, I'm sure. Okay, so Chris Bowen says that they have added 100 million litres of fuel to the domestic market. That is said to is going to last us 1 month. How long is the war in? How long is this war going to last, though? Because I think Donald Trump actually said 1 month, didn't he, when it started?
No, he said a few day, a week long, several special operation, and then it's just oh yeah, your week long special operation has now exploded to what?
And he said that they completely obliterated all the infrastructure on Karg Island. which is not really true. And he also said that they might just hit it more just for fun. Did you see that?
Oh, really?
I have to agree with like libtards here. Like when you're talking about operations in a war, you don't say shit like that. You don't say I'm going to hit my enemy like just for fun. I mean, do you remember back in the Iraq War, George W. Bush was talking about like IEDs killing American soldiers, and then he said, "My message to these people is bring it on." Do you remember that? You might have been a bit too
I
young
would have. Yeah, maybe on the
at
young
the
side for that.
time.
I remember him on top of the pretending to be like an Air Force member.
Oh, the mission accomplished thing.
Yeah, with the helmets and standing on probably an F-22 at the time. That's
Yeah,
like the
that was
earliest
stupid.
thing outside of 9/11 that I remember.
Okay. But yeah, Bush actually said that. Like he said, bring it on. And he was rightly chastised for saying such a stupid thing. But Donald Trump says shit like this just all the time. You know?
Oh God.
Maybe it's because, I got off the Trump train like many years ago now. And I guess I was just sort of willing to write all of these things as just like rhetorical bluster, and that's just Trump being Trump or whatever. But some of this stuff is just, it really is dangerous what he says. He's nearly 80 years old now as well. You can tell like there's a strain, that like old man strain in his voice that's crept in, and I'm thinking maybe he'll go the same way as Biden, in that the dementia will start to creep in, and he won't even be able to drop these like zingers anymore because his
No.
brain and his KFC diet, just isn't working for him.
Yeah, I don't know if like it was like an appeal to like the American layman, where like he just showed like he ate like fucking shit tons of McDonald's or something like that and drank Diet Coke. But like,
Yeah,
yeah, that does catch up to you eventually.
yeah. Well, especially when you're an elderly man, when you're 79 years old, you know, it's like people point out that he doesn't drink or smoke. It's like, well, so what? He's a massive fat cunt who like lives off junk food.
Yeah.
Like that's very bad for your health as well. All right.
Man, no.
Okay, now, besides obviously, the Australian relation to the conflict in the Middle East at the moment, the biggest political news story, I think, was that the Federal Nationals now have a new leader. So, David Littleproud, who has spent quite a few years, I think at least 4 years, in the top job for the Nationals, he had quite an emotional announcement when he called the press conference. He was out there with his mail order bride, dare I say. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah.
I can't quite make out what her ethnicity is, but she's certainly not white. And I did read, this is not Littleproud's first wife. He has a previous marriage with children that broke up a few years ago, and then he remarried this, whatever the fuck she is, some kind of Asian jungle bunny.
Fucking Jesus. I was gonna say Southeast Asian at least. I don't know. Like it's a very
It's a jungle
round
Asian.
face. I've seen that face. Possibly in Vietnam, to be honest.
Okay. Well, a lot of people were saying, like, what is David Littleproud's legacy going to be? And, probably like the biggest thing he ever did was blow up the coalition twice. I mean,
Yeah.
when was the last time? When was the last time there was actually a divorce between the Liberals and the Nationals? I mean, when was that? Certainly, I can't remember. There has been a few at the state level. It actually happens quite regularly here in WA. But at the federal level, I'm not sure if it's even happened before. And within the course of 9 months, David Littleproud ended that and then quickly got back into coalition. Very strange way of negotiating. And I don't know if he was just trying to prove that he had, the balls to stand up to the Libs, because, this is a constant theme in terms of the role that the Nationals play in the coalition, is that they're being told by the city dwellers to just stay quiet and, we'll give you the ministers. You can have, fill the quota and have a certain amount of Nationals on the front bench, but don't bother about actually asserting your own interests and the policies that you want to see, especially for rural Australia. So I don't know if David Littleproud was out there just trying to prove that, he wasn't like that. He wouldn't just capitulate to whatever the Liberals wanted. And then he, had this hard line on net zero, and they say that was the big disagreement that broke everything up. And then the Liberals actually had, as official policy, they were dumping net zero. They still wanted to stay in the Paris Accords, though, which, Paris Accords basically requires that you get to net zero by 2050. So it was and they also said that it was still an aspirational goal, but but it's not a hard target. So, it was a very sort of weak way of dumping the policy.
Look,
and then, of course, the second time...
Sorry. I was going to say, when I was listening to the rundown, it sounded as much. It sounded like he kind of got, disgraced, over certain coalition policy announcements, and that he was like, okay, because again, it wasn't that fucking slow for them to find his replacement, wasn't it?
No, and I guess, yeah. Look,
that might tell.
Yeah, no, we'll get to his replacement soon. I just only had one other thing to say, which was, the second time that the coalition broke up, it was over the hate speech laws. But I made the point at the time that both David Littleproud and Susan Lee called for Parliament to be resumed, for there to be emergency legislation ran through the Parliament in response to the Bondi shooting. David Littleproud said that as well. So, he is not... This wasn't a case of the Liberal Party is just bludgeoning the Nationals and saying, we have to support these hate speech laws from Labor no matter what. That's not really the way it worked. Littleproud came out and said that. And Lee, of course, came out and said that we needed the recall of Parliament. And Lee actually went out pounding her fist, saying that she hadn't seen any tears from Penny Wong. Because, of course, that is the way you prove that you care about an issue, isn't it? Like if you cry in public.
Oh, yeah, God.
You have to come out and shed a few tears. I remember they said that about Julia Gillard. I can't remember what it was about, but then when the Queensland floods hit, she came out and started crying, and it looked very fake. So I don't know if Penny Wong has the theatrical capacity to come out and fake crying or not. Maybe because she's a lesbian, it'll be a lot harder for her to do that. She thinks too much like a man. I don't know. Anyway, short story is I don't like David Littleproud, and bye-bye. Okay, now the new guy. Now this is actually quite extraordinary. We have Matt Canavan. He is the leader. Now, Matt Canavan is actually a senator from the backbench. Okay? So this is highly unorthodox. They never choose a leader from the Senate. It's not because you're not allowed to, but it's convention. And it's better that way because then, they have their counterpart in the government sitting in the same house as them, the same chamber. So also, the deputy leader of the Liberals is Jane Hume, who also sits in the Senate. That was unusual too. And talking about Barnaby Joyce, who used to have this position, a lot of people forget that he actually started out as a senator, and because he became so popular, people wanted him to be leader, and so he actually quit the Senate and ran for the seat of New England in New South Wales. And then as soon as that happened, he became leader of the Nationals. So apparently, you don't need to do that anymore. You can actually stay in the Senate. Now, Matt Canavan has actually not been on the front bench since 2020, February 2020. That's 6 years of being on the backbench. Now, what kind of a fucking backbencher, is there for 6 years and then actually just goes to the top job? It's quite unusual.
Something's happened there.
Yeah. All right. So I'll just again give brief history lesson on Matt Canavan. He did have ministries in the Scott Morrison government. He was also deputy leader for a while. And when he was deputy leader, he was also on the backbench. Another very unusual thing. But anyway, he first went to the backbench when he supported Barnaby Joyce challenging Michael McCormick. Do you remember that short stint Michael McCormick had? He was sort of like this accidental leader because Barnaby was shagging his staffer. We remember that story, surely.
Yeah. Didn't we cover it?
Oh, we might have. Yeah, probably. But that was when Malcolm Turnbull was Prime Minister, and then he introduced the infamous bonk ban. So yeah, that was...
Stop getting into affairs, people.
Yeah, well, he said that, you're not allowed to root your co-workers. That's basically what it was. But Barnaby Joyce ended up marrying... what was her name? Vicky? Yeah, Vicky Campion. She was like his, I don't know, chief of staff or something. And they ended up having a baby together. And Barnaby was forced to the backbench, but he challenged Michael McCormick and was defeated. And Matt Canavan supported him in that. And then, by convention, Matt Canavan had to go to the backbench because he supported a leadership coup. That thing kind of happens. However, later on, remember, Barnaby actually came back. He launched another challenge, and he came back to the front bench. But Matt Canavan stayed on the backbench. Now, why was that? Well, there's no official line on this, but I think it's pretty obvious. He could not back net zero. Because remember, under the Morrison government, the coalition, that is the Liberals and the Nationals, officially supported net zero by 2050. And that was when Barnaby Joyce was leader. Yes, we know Barnaby Joyce now is like a vehement opponent of net zero. And, at least in his mind, he always opposed it. But on paper, he supported it. Through gritted teeth, perhaps, but still, he supported it. So that's why a lot of people say that, Matt Canavan is the true conviction politician, because he didn't capitulate. He said, no, I still oppose net zero, and if that means I have to stay on the backbench, then so be it. So that may have actually paid off for him. These 6 years in the political wilderness where he has been sort of trying to push the National Party in a more right-wing populist direction was kind of how I've seen it described. And, he was on Sky News like almost every bloody day. And he would have like a screen behind him that always had some slogan. And the slogan most of the time was about like renewable energy being shit and how we need coal. So he was an absolute favorite for Sky News. And, they're rapt, I think, that that Canavan is leader now. Okay, so who is he? He did say that he's not your typical National Party senator. He said, I'm not a farmer. I'm not a small businessman.
Oh
I am an
no.
economist who spent most of his time working for the Productivity Commission. Oh, so there you go. He's a bit of a
That's
policy wonk.
don't shoot yourself in the foot at the beginning, buddy.
Yeah. Barnaby was an accountant. A lot of people think he was a farmer. No,
Oh
he
fuck.
was just an accountant from the bush.
Well,
Okay.
sometimes the older sons of farmers are accountants, but yeah, no, yeah, don't. It's like I'm not a farmer. I'm not a small businessman. It's like, buddy, that's dangerous fucking territory to step into, especially now.
Yeah. Okay, so I mentioned that he supports a kind of right wing populism. How you define that is certainly debatable, but something he did say, I remember was that he doesn't like the idea of talking about free markets. So again, unlike Andrew Hastie, he hasn't cucked on this position. He prefers the old National Party approach, which has sometimes been referred to as agrarian socialism, where you have protection of agricultural markets in Australia. You subsidize it, you give drought relief, you have tariffs on imports. He's actually very much in favor of all that stuff. And unlike Andrew Hastie, who went and made a video on wanting to bring car manufacturing back to Australia, and then later on saying that he didn't support bringing car manufacturing back, Matt Canavan is actually saying the same thing that he's been saying for years. He is a protectionist. Okay, so what else? He also supports income splitting. Have you heard of this? So this is where your income is split evenly between two people, so husband and wife, for the purpose of tax benefits. Now that might sound confusing, so I'll give an example. Let's say you've got a husband and a wife. The wife doesn't work, but the husband earns $120,000 per year. Well, for the purpose of tax, the ATO would consider that both of them actually earn $60,000 a year. The income is split evenly between them, and then rather taxing one person for $120,000, two people are taxed as if they were both earning 60 grand a year.
Okay.
It's said to be, sort of a more pro-family approach.
I could see it breaking off that way.
Yeah.
It would definitely encourage homemaking, which is something that I'm never going to shake my finger.
Well,
at.
I think that's part of the idea. I think that's what he's trying to go for there.
Okay. Again, with all things in terms of state policy, we'll need to see how this plays out, because you can make a policy, but how it's implemented and how it's worked with is the big decider there, isn't it?
Yes. So I guess he's also just talked about coal fire stations as well. Coal continuing to play a role in Australia's energy production. Not only does he not want to shut all these mines down and coal fire stations down, he wants to actually open new ones. Now, I don't know how successful he would be if coalition government was were to be formed in that, but that's what he wants. He said that he does also support the government's sending of military assistance to the Gulf states for the current war. But he said that he is skeptical of foreign entanglements that may not improve things. So, I don't know. He's sort of given a pseudo isolationist position. I really wish, the so-called right-wing populists would just be a lot more direct here and just say, no, we don't support that. Donald Trump, like back in 2015, said that like the United States had spent around $3 trillion on foreign wars since they went into Afghanistan and had basically gotten nothing out of it. But here he is now, firing rockets at fucking Karg Island and everything. And
I'm not even joking. I think that if you wanted to be a right-wing populist right now and win, you'd go to a rally and scream like, "No son of my country shall die for Israel." I mean, like, risking losing certain interest groups that aren't people, they're just institutions.
Yeah.
But yes.
No, I just mean like it's very hard to define what is the right wing populist position on the Middle East and interventionism, foreign wars and everything. It's very confused because Donald Trump has completely switched gears in regard to foreign policy. Okay, anyway, I'm sure we'll have a lot more to say about Matt Canavan as time goes on. Let's talk about the economy. So, well, again, we have to refer back to the Middle Eastern war. So it's looking like there may be a temporary 0.5 percentage point added to inflation in Australia, mainly because of the price of oil. Jim Chalmers is warning everyone about that. So, he's getting in ahead saying, all right, when this happens, don't blame the government. It's nothing to do with us. It's just oil prices that we have no control over.
Jim,
which is true.
The interest rates will not raise, Charmer.
Right. So yeah. They say that if prices of oil go beyond $120 a barrel, Treasury is actually expecting that there will be a full percentage point added to headline inflation. So, yeah, it's going to be bad. And, here we're not just talking about fuel prices, obviously. We're talking about everything. We're talking about groceries. We're talking about rent. We're talking about a lot.
I was going to say, the world fucking runs on oil.
Yep.
Everything runs on oil.
What happens when we run out, though?
Hang myself?
I mean, we do have to run out eventually, surely.
I mean, that is the gentlemanly solution. No, a decent power grid and nuclear, and that'll get us through like the next couple 100 years, and then figure something out after that.
Okay. We'd have to get into some kind of futurist discussion.
Oh yeah.
So we've had another GST carve up, and again, everyone is complaining about how much the sand gropers are getting. We're getting $6.6 billion. Now, under the old deal, where Western Australia really got screwed in terms of GST, we would have actually only gotten $2.7 billion. Now, I forget what the exact figures are on all of this, but, I know that, like, in terms of GST contributions, for WA, it's what? Like, we receive, like, 60 cents for every dollar we put in. And then in Tasmania, they receive, like, $1.50 for every dollar they put in. Something like that.
I mean, I don't mean to interject because there's big complaints about that, but I expect like
as long as it's like timed well and we know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, when it comes to Tasmania, you do kind of expect it because it's Australia's retirement home.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
But the rest of the states, like, it makes no fucking sense.
Well, I have to point this out. WA still does not get back as much GST as it pays. Like, it never has. Ever. Since this was introduced, back in 99 or 2000? So, because the way it works is when John Howard introduced it back then, sales tax was abolished because we had a very weird system before the GST. Like, there was certain products would attract a certain percentage of tax while others would not. I remember Peter Costello pointing out that, like, what was it? Chocolate Nesquik had like a very low tax on it, but strawberry Nesquik had a really high tax. There was stuff like that.
So, start of fiscal year 2000, and it was a part of a new tax system, Goods and Services Tax Act of 1999.
99, okay. But yeah, the idea was after abolishing all those other taxes, we'd have the GST 10% like flat rate on goods and services, minus some groceries, and every year we take all of that revenue and we divide it up among the states and territories. From the very beginning, WA was paying much more than the other states because of our mining sector, resources sector, and we always have. But previously, I don't know what it was. It was something really pitiful, like what we were getting. We'd been complaining about it for years, and then finally there was a deal brokered with, I think, Mark McGowan and Scott Morrison back in 2018, I think. I think that I think it was that. It was when Shorten was leader.
Oh yeah.
But the ABC really hates this, and they quoted this economist whose name is Sol Eslake. Don't know what he looks like, but
we could take a guess, couldn't we?
Yeah. So he said, ultimately the residents of Australia's richest state will come to enjoy better public services and lower state taxes than other Australians. How Jim Chalmers and Anthony Albanese can reconcile that with their professed commitments to equity and getting the budget into better nick, as Chalmers likes to say, is beyond me. Something like we actually pay something like 55% of all of the GST that's collected. That's massive.
Yeah. Again, you think the service economies of both New South Wales and Victoria would catch up, right? But no, selling rocks is apparently much more taxable and much more lucrative.
Okay. So let's talk about capital gains tax.
Here we go.
This, if you believe the Greens, is like the single issue pushing prices up in the housing market. Nothing but this, just capital gains tax discounts. So Allegra Spender, who is the Teal member for Wentworth, one of the richest electorates and also the most Jewish electorate in the country, she said that her residents saved $1.8 billion in taxes in a single year from the capital gains discount. So this is a 50% discount you get when selling property. So anyway, she says she was actually kind of against her own constituents' interests here, where she says it's unfair. So she wants to rein in negative gearing and basically abolish that discount, or at least lower that discount for future property sales. Now, this is sort of a Teal stepping off the plantation in a way. These are the kind of policies that she should actually, like capital gains tax discounts should actually be something she supports. I've not heard from the other Teals about this. But what she's supposed to do is come out and say all this stuff about climate change and how important it is, and how we need to transition to a renewable energy economy. But when it comes to negative gearing or taxing inheritances, things like that, making sure your son's trust fund is topped up well, the Tills are supposed to leave all that stuff alone, because these are just like trust fund kids who vote for them, who care
Again,
about
like
gay rights.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, didn't we like say, like, back in the day, or at least I said back in the day, like, I want to keep daddy's money and be gay about it.
Yeah, and that's what they do. So,
but yeah, no, reducing capital gains, like the tax credit for capital gains, it will help. But that's just because it's going to reduce the amount of like old money buyers in the market.
yeah,
Again, we both know exactly what the material problem is with the property market.
yeah, and I think it's yet another distraction. This is brought up so we don't actually go. We don't discuss the elephant in the room, and that's what pisses me off about it the most. Because look, I'm like, if you want to scrap that discount, like, I'm not opposed to that. Like, sure, you want to get rid of negative gearing. I think, there was a time I supported negative gearing. Now I don't. Like, negative gearing used to be there for modest property investors. Now it's really benefiting the super rich.
Yeah.
And it is playing a role in the fact that investors are the ones buying up all the properties, and then they jack the rents up themselves, meaning that people who are paying those rent have less capacity to save for a deposit on a house, and thus are just permanently frozen out of the market. But the real issue here is immigration. We've gone through many times before about how, like, the property price hikes have been well above headline inflation. And not only that, but the spike that occurred in property prices happened right after we opened the borders after the COVID restrictions. And no one can tell me that's a coincidence. Okay?
Go to an auction. Find out for yourself.
But no, according to the Greens, it's all just capital gains tax and negative gearing. You get rid of those generous breaks for the rich, and apparently everything will be fine. Okay. So look, Treasury is actually looking at scrapping the capital gains discount on investment properties and replacing it with a flat tax and indexation. So that just means, whatever the price of the property is, you just pay a certain percentage, and that percentage may actually change depending on how expensive it was. That's what they mean by the indexation. So the current government may actually be doing that. The thing is, though, what they're looking at here, the main thing that they're actually focused on is revenue. So I think what's motivating them here is that, they want to basically increase the tax that you pay when you sell a property. But the reason why is because the budget is in not a very good state, and they want to save money. It doesn't seem like they're motivated by actually, reducing property prices. Okay. Now, finally, Labor has actually secured a deal with the Greens to get through its tax policy on superannuation. Now, we might remember that they did actually give up the tax that they were going to put in on unrealized gains. I I think a lot of us just kind of knew that never stood a chance. That wasn't going to get through.
Yeah.
However, what it will be is you'll pay an extra or an increased tax if you have a superannuation budget of more than $3 million.
Look, I was even talking
Which,
with my father today. I mean, like it's not enough to retire on, but I was talking to my father today, and he was like, "Oh yeah, like a retirement home, literally like a not utilities, not anything, just getting a foot in the door for a retirement home at this point is $770,000.
yeah, I mean, that's the immediate question you've got to ask yourself is like, is $3 million actually really that much? Especially when you consider how much cost of living will be by the time you're at retirement age, you know?
Mm.
There was certainly a time $3 million would have sounded very, very comfortable, but
The
no, not
80s.
with the way inflation is going. Yeah, like with the inflation rate, with out of control like grocery and fuel prices, and obviously housing. Like, no, $3 million actually might not go that far for you in
Yeah,
retirement.
I was actually plotting it out for my old man today, just because, unfortunately we were looking at it. And, yeah, no, it's possibly going to be a little shy of 9.2 for him today, by the way.
Right.
That's today. So, yeah, and by the way, that's not fancy. He's going so, he's going so far away from desirable locations that, like, I was thinking to myself, like, oh, Jesus Christ, I won't be able to fucking visit you if you go that far. So, yeah, no, it was a 0.77 to get in the door, and then I think about 5 for basic utilities, and yeah, about 3 and a bit, for like, miscellaneous costs / hospice costs.
Yeah. Well, look, we're going to discuss housing soon, and yeah, we're actually going to talk about people who you would imagine would be quite well off, who are struggling even to pay rent. Um, but before we do that, last story on the economy. Now, this one, I'm wholeheartedly behind this, what Labor is supporting. And this is a crackdown on subscriptions that people don't want or are unaware of.
Mm.
Now, I think just about all of us have paid for like a monthly subscription where we're like, oh shit, I forgot about that. I signed up for the free trial. And then, because I had to give my credit card information, it automatically debited that amount for the next month because, well, I forgot about it. Now, this actually just happened to me today. I was using a guitar tuner on my phone to obviously tune my guitar. And the app that I was using suddenly said that they were moving towards subscriptions. Yes, that's right. For a fucking tuner app, they were moving towards subscribing for using it. Yes, yes. Now, I was sort of I had to kind of get my guitar tuned quickly, so I signed up and everything. But the problem was, like, that meant that like I paid for it through like my Google Play account or whatever it is. So anyway, later on, I didn't forget it because I've fucked this up before. But I was like, okay, I got to cancel this subscription. I could not find it anywhere. Like I looked through, and even on the part where it says like manage your subscription, you hit all the buttons there, and there's no option to cancel it. You know. Now this is very deliberate, and this is what Labor have been saying, that so many people find themselves in this trap. And of course, they never send like an email saying, just letting you know that next week you've got your subscription payment. They won't do that. It's just, oh, surprise, here it is. And then if you want to cancel it, you have to jump through all these fucking hoops. Now,
Are you
apparently,
sure? Are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah. Oh, and sometimes they give you like a little sweetener or something, like, oh, all right, if you keep your subscription, we'll give you like this, whatever. Now, they reckon that this is actually costing us $46 million. So that's $46 million of subscriptions that are like unwanted, accidental, or you don't even know about them. That's a shitload of money. And yeah, they're mentioning all those issues that I just made. So yes, absolutely crack down on that. It's dirty marketing. It's predatory pricing. Well, not predatory pricing, but it's predatory behavior on people.
Yeah.
And especially like, if you're not very tech savvy, I mean, good luck figuring that stuff out. Like, if you're not tech savvy, there's no way you're going to figure out how to cancel a subscription.
Well, you have to email our customer service email, which is actually at the 15 graphics user interfaces selections down, and I had the same deal with a actually fuck it with Adobe, because I used to use Premiere back in the day, and getting rid of your renewal with Premiere is a fucking nightmare.
Well, so there was research done on this via the Consumer Policy Research Centre. They found 75% of Australians are believed to have had a negative experience when trying to cancel a subscription, including feeling pressure to keep it or continue paying for a related service they no longer need. Yeah. So, yeah, it looks like most people have actually been screwed over by this at some point. And, it all adds up. And that's why, like, I used to not really watch my credit card transactions. I watch them like a hawk now, just in case, something like this slips through.
Because they'll get you.
Yeah. So I encourage everyone, like, check your PayPal or your credit card or whatever it is you use for online purchases, and just make sure you're not getting screwed. All right. Now let's move on to housing. So they love profiling people on the ABC in terms of like, what their personal housing situation is. Now, I usually don't go through these, but I did want to go through this one. So I just want to picture this woman. She is a single mother who is renting in Sydney and is actually so strapped for cash that she's actually considering living in her car temporarily. Now, when I say that, you're probably thinking of like some 21-year-old drug addict who actually has like 4 kids to 4 different fathers or something like that. Actually, no. This woman is 40 years old and she works as a lawyer and she earns $90,000 a year. She is a professional. She works a white-collar job, a good job. But she lives in Sydney and she is finding that accommodation is incredibly difficult for her to afford, especially since she needs to be close to the CBD because, well, she's a lawyer.
Yeah.
So, this isn't just hurting like, people on the bones of their asses anymore. This is hurting middle-class people,
This is hurting upper middle-class people.
Yes, it is. And, they say that that's when society is ripe for revolution, when the middle classes and the upper middle classes actually start to get screwed and not just the people at the bottom, because the middle classes are the ones who really know how to be politically active if they're sufficiently motivated.
Yeah, also they've got the means. Well, I mean, a dissolving amount of means, but...
Yeah. But they've got more than, the average working class person. So, yeah. So, I mean, that just shouldn't exist. Like, a 40-year-old lawyer, should not. What kind of a country is it where she has to actually sleep in her car?
What kind of a country is it when she's a single mother and a lawyer?
Yeah. Now, look, she's saying that one thing that could save her from sleeping in her car would be New South Wales hurrying up with this what's called a portable bond scheme. Now, what this is that if you go from one rental to another, you can simply transfer your bond from that rental to the one you're moving into. The thing is, like, you know, if you've had an experience with rentals before, when you move out of a rental property, the real estate or your landlord or whatever tries as hard as they can to get as much of that fucking bond as they can, right? And
yeah, command strips won't save you here. Do
yeah,
they have those stateside?
and look, most people just, you know, don't have the means or the knowledge, you like, how to contest these things. But you know, the money actually sits in trust. You know, like no one actually like owns it until it's released. So you know, you can fight it. But yeah, once you've actually had it dispersed, sometimes you're left with very, very little. And so you're constantly losing that money as you go from rental to rental. So
I'm not even joking. When my mother was in communications with this is a top property management company here in Australia. They're like, oh yeah, by the way, here's this little trick. Like you can like put a nail on your fucking shoe and drag it along the place and get your bond back.
God. Yeah. I remember when my cousin was living here, who was from the motherland. She showed me this email from the real estate. They were moving out, and she actually took photos of like dandelions, and she wrote in there that there were dandelions of more than 30 centimeters. And you know that those were considered to be like an eyesore, and then she must remove them immediately. Like,
oh, Jesus fucking Christ.
They could be fucking pricks pulling shit like that.
Again, like, you know, they're motivated by thousands of dollars to be pricks. So yeah, bond transfer would be. I'd like to do it like an experiment on how well that would work out, because yeah, there could be some nasty characters abusing that, but in this case, you know, like I could see it as a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, look, again, this is one of those things where I'm like, okay, fine, if that helps, then let's do it. But I can't help but look at it as yet another distraction in terms of no one wants to talk about the primary cause of rental prices going through the roof. Okay, so we'll shoot around the country and just give you yet another idea of how bad it is out there. So Margaret River, which is a regional area here in Western Australia, it is also a bit of a tourist spot, but apparently they have a massive homeless problem now. So, you know,
Yes,
it's not just like the city centres that have homeless people. We're actually now talking about like regional areas where they've got a real homeless problem. And the median rent in Margaret River is $800 a week. That's higher than what it is in Perth. You know, like, now, sure, like Margaret River is a nice spot and a lot of rich people live there, but, you know, still, it's like, what, 3.5 hours out of Perth? Like, it's a regional area.
Yeah, you're only making money there working as a bartender or like a, you know, hotel fucking, was it busser or something like that?
Or if you own a wine vineyard or something.
Yeah. I think like there's also a guy that used to go by the handle of like, you know, Gangster Moogie back in the day, and like you know, like he just reached out to me recently saying like, yeah, look, I'm about to be homeless.
Where is he living?
Bustleton specifically.
Oh, okay, well, I mean that's kind of down the same way, and
yes,
they're not too far apart. Okay, so also in Western Australia, we have 2,258 people aged over 67, so in other words, retirement age, on the wait list for public housing. And what is this? Oh, there's also 23,000 total applications. There's an enormous backlog. A lot of the time you're talking about widows as well, people whose partner has passed on. And so, they just live by themselves and they just need to have like some kind of affordable flat or something. We're actually risking putting a lot of these people out on the street as well, which is kind of scary. So in Queensland, so land valuations in Ipswich in Queensland have gone up 50%, while the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast are up almost 25%. Again, areas outside the capital, still very, very expensive. Now, talking about Brisbane itself, there's a lot of complaints here that many of the new apartments going on the market are actually what you call luxury builds. They're designed for busy city centre professionals. And these ones start from, if you want a one-bedroom, one-bathroom apartment, they start from $700,000. And then they go all the way up to 11 million.
Yeah.
Do you want that? An $11 million apartment?
I saw you tweeting about this, not last night, but the night before.
Was I tweeting about this?
Yeah. The $11 million apartment.
Did I? Oh, okay. Maybe I did. I don't know. But,
I literally, I rocked back in my chair. I was like, what the fuck?
Well, okay, look, to be fair, that is a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom riverfront apartment. So, it's pretty good. Not your average apartment, but holy shit,
not worth $11 million. Not worth 11 million. Fuck me.
Okay. All right, so in Victoria, the Allen government is saying that they would make home sellers pay for building and pest inspections rather than home buyers. Okay, again, yeah, like a little thing, I guess, that would be fairer. The fact that, they can just hand the property over to you in like whatever shitty state it is, and then, you're left to pick up the pieces, that is a bit unfair, I think. So, okay, fine. That sounds like a good idea. Now, there's rezoning going on in Sydney in the inner west. So this, as you can imagine, again, is for high-density housing, big, tall apartment buildings. They're saying that this could actually generate 18,300 new homes and nearly 4,000 jobs. But, when this is to work in line with the opening of the new metro station in Sydney, well, that's not opening until 2032. So, we're talking about 6 years here for these houses to all come on the market. All right, let's get on to a bit of industrial relations. So we have what they're calling the fourth stage of the inquiry into the CFMEU in Queensland. Now, the Queensland Workplace Health and Safety Regulator was apparently captured by the CFMEU when Labor was in power last. So what is this? Oh yeah. So here's the quote here. This is Senior Counsel. Regulatory capture of the workplace health and safety Health and Safety Queensland by the CFMEU during the period that Grace was the Minister for Industrial Relations. Yes, that was the name of the IR Minister for the Queensland Labor government. Her name is Grace. So they're saying that the CFMEU basically controlled the regulator at that time, and that the Industrial Relations Minister was complicit in that, or basically turned a blind eye to it. And that has been referred to as a regulatory capture, that is a form of institutional corruption. Now, someone else who gave testimony, so this is someone from Workplace Health and Safety Queensland, said that the CFMEU had effectively formed an alliance with the regulator when they were in power. Okay.
Okay.
I didn't really think many bureaucrats would be working hand in glove with the CFMEU. I don't think it really works like that. So yeah, look, take all of this with a grain of salt.
I was going to say this is hard to swallow.
The Liberal Party love these inquiries, or they love royal commissions into the CFMEU. They just every one of them, from the states to the territories, federal government, they always try and snuff out the CFMEU. I mean, they're never successful. They manage to batter them a bit, but
how many legs are the CFMEU on right now? Because I'm sorry if I'm not correct, but didn't we last cover they were in administration?
Yeah, that's what I was just about to mention. Is that okay? Right now they're actually basically owned by the federal government. They've been nationalized. This was a form of nationalization of a union that the business lobby supported. Okay, so I mean, I don't think, but the most restrictions though are placed on them in Victoria and New South Wales, because that's where the main allegations of corruption and organised crime links were biggest. All right. So the ACTU is demanding what they say should be a fairer workers' compensation system. The current system is known as ComCare, and this is there obviously if you're injured at work or something like that, you get some form of compensation. My understanding is that that's kind of split between the government and the company, and also sort of depends on the company's role in your injury. Was it the company's fault or was it just your fault? So they're also calling for extra annual leave, shorter working hours, and overhauling the ComCare system that covers about 500,000 workers. So they want the government to adopt all 124 recommendations from an independent review from the Safety, Rehabilitation and Compensation Act. And look, fairly typical demands here from the ACTU.
Yeah.
And from Sally McManus. I don't know if I would support all of them. Sometimes, I do look at union contracts like EBAs and just think, okay, you're taking the piss here. I remember we went through that one where the CFMEU members got $100 a week mobile phone allowance. Remember that?
Yeah,
what? So your phone bill costs $400 a month, does it?
I was saying I was yeah, mine only costs $165. I'm paying for
$20. I spend $20 a month on my phone, and that's it. And I never go over my data limit or whatever. That's it. So,
That is a bit
I
insane, but
understand.
yeah.
You probably would use your phone on site a lot, particularly if it's a big site. That's fair enough. But I
Is it
just
a satellite phone?
can't. I
Does it
just,
have
yeah.
a GPS fucking SIM card in it?
Yeah, it's not like you're doing a Zoom meeting or something, trying to talk to the scaffolder or something. It just, yeah. Okay, anyway, let's move on to climate and energy. And oh, look at that, only one story. So, the Australian energy regulator has a plan to offer free power to people, but only during the day. So, why is that? Well, with so many people having solar panels on their roofs now, very often during the day, when obviously the sun is shining the most, there is a lot of solar energy generated from those panels, and
Hmm.
sometimes it's actually too much for the grid to handle. There's a surplus of it, and remember, you can't really store it. You need batteries
Yep.
to be able to do that. Um,
Yeah.
so
Well, I mean, uh,
this is
just
the regular saying, okay, you can have a bit of this free power but only during these times.
but yeah, like to steal Canadians' terminology, um, angry pixies have to be used in the moment. And the reason why angry pixies have to be used in the moment, or like free energy, or loose energy is probably the better term, is because if it's not, used to turn your blender on, start your microwave, power your AC system, it's turned into heat, which becomes damage in the grid.
Right. Do they ever actually, is there a way of them just like releasing it, like letting it go?
It's
I
called a
know that.
shunt resistor, and it's possibly the worst idea on a modern grid. Wind the clock
Okay.
back about 100 years, maybe, but like now, no.
No? Okay. I mean, that would be an awful waste, obviously, doing that. But
It's a big
um,
heating coil. That's what it is. Like when
yeah.
when your like entire city's grid was only like a couple hundred kilowatts, that's fine. You can make a heating coil or a series of heating coils that can just eat it. But yeah, if we're talking megawatts per suburb at this point. So yeah, no, that's like well, I think everyone has seen one of those arc flash videos before. That's pretty much what one of those things would be these days.
Okay. All right. Okay, we'll move to immigration now. And believe it or not, Tony Burke, the Immigration and Home Affairs Minister, is looking to ban a whole heap of people from entering the country. Now, you might have guessed this is just simply to do with the war at the moment in the Middle East. That's all it is. Governments of whatever persuasion always do this when there's some kind of armed conflict going on. Um, so, this is Labor's going to have the power to halt some temporary visa holders coming into Australia. Now, the main thing they're worried about is, like, say, Iranians who come here on a visitor visa or working visa of some kind, and then they claim asylum. And
Yeah.
we actually had a very, very good example of that with the Iranian female soccer team um, declaring asylum.
Yeah. Now,
Um,
granted, my source for this is very much pro-Iranian. Um, but apparently there was like an AFP officer that entered several, or like AFP officers who entered several buses and said, like, like, hey, look, here's the papers, and we're not moving unless you sign them.
oh,
I wouldn't be surprised about the female soccer team in that case, but the other ones which were held up and basically like the people inside were like banging on the windows, maybe. Again, up in the air, grain of salt.
they those girls must get incredibly hot. Like, it's sort of like a burkini equivalent in soccer. Like you're just covered in spandex or whatever the hell it is from head to toe.
Oh yeah.
You've just got like your hands and your face exposed. That must be incredibly hot.
Look, it's someone's fetish.
It could be. So, one of the 7 members of the Iranian football team who was granted protection, granted asylum, in other words, has actually changed her mind, and she was asked to be returned to Iran. So the other 6 are staying in Australia, or at least that's their plans for now. But she's saying, no, I want to go back to my country. And, well, I got to say that's a pretty brave move, considering what's going on right now. Even me, as a white nationalist, I am, sympathetic to people who, would have to be forced to go back to an open conflict like that. I would basically say, okay, you can stay here for a little while. As soon as things die down over there, you're on the boat or you're on the plane.
But Finian, I'm a gay African.
Well, no. Like, have you noticed though that the conservatives love Iranian immigrants? They love the Iranian diaspora because they talk shit about the regime, about the Ayatollah. Now, obviously, there's a massive selection bias there in that, well, if you move out of Iran, there's certainly a higher chance that you don't support the regime. But no, like, just think of Rita Bahani on Sky News. She's of Iranian descent, and she proudly calls herself a Zionist.
I've met both. Like I've met loyalists, and I've met the counter-revolutionaries. The thing is, the counter-revolutionaries seem to have amassed in Australia just before the stadium hostage incident.
Yeah, I've only really met like sort of westernized Iranians, and they are actually quite different from Arabs, I think.
Oh yeah, of course,
because they are more westernized. They drink like anyone else. They dress, in Western clothes. They listen to Western music. They're, dare I say, they're actually pretty white presenting, or at least the ones I've met are.
Yeah, I think that the photo released of the son of Khamenei's sister. Look, I'll put it this way: it's passing, and also like I've had an instructor back in the day that was Iranian and had blonde hair and green eyes. So yeah, I wouldn't say, at least their ruling class isn't, Arabian ethnically.
If you look at their the judges on their Supreme Court, I think Eric Stryker said, it's whiter than the American Supreme Court, and
possibly
it probably is.
I still love that that one photo where it's like Sean Connery and Ayatollah Khomeini right next to each other. Is like, which one is Sean Connery and which one is Ayatollah Khomeini?
Yeah. Well, look, okay, so when the Ayatollah was killed, yes, there were scenes of Iranians in Australia coming out celebrating it, and a lot of them were waving Iranian flags, but they were also waving Israeli flags.
Right? Yes, that would be the telltale.
Right. Now, but also, by the very same token, there was a lot of Iranians out there mourning the death of the Ayatollah,
Yes.
So it's not like they're a monolith. There's plenty of Iranians in Australia and other countries who are very supportive of the regime. And as we were saying at the beginning of the show, it looks like that support has been solidified since this war started.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's lot of history about pre-revolution Iran. Uh, yeah, that there's a lot of stuff that would divide them. I'll put it that way. Yeah, it's I could talk for 3 hours on it, but we won't do that now.
Yeah, look, they are quite a different kettle of fish compared to the rest of the Middle East. I mean, like, for example, their language, Farsi, that is an Indo-European language. It's
Yep.
not related to Arabic. And in fact, I read that it actually has more in common with English than it does with Arabic.
Haven't heard that, but yeah, I know that they literally have to fake Arabic words within it.
Yeah. So now that said, there's still a lot of Arab admixture in your average Iranian. That
Yep.
most of them do look pretty brown. So, the ancient Persian that you might see in a fucking Sparta movie or something like that, those people just basically don't exist anymore, or at least they're very
Oh
rare.
no. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go over to the Anti-Semitism Commission that is ongoing. I believe their report is due in December, so we've got a while to go. Now, Dennis Richardson, who was a former ASIO boss, and of course, as a white nationalist, that automatically makes me, skeptical if you're a former ASIO boss. But anyway,
Yep.
he was working on the Royal Commission, and he recently resigned. And he said that he was surplus to requirements. What did he mean by that? Well, he was actually being paid $5,500 a day to work in this Royal Commission. Now, he's saying that there was no point in him being there in the first place. Now, why did he say that? Well, remember in the early days of this, the Albanese government did not want a Royal Commission. They simply wanted an inquiry. Well, Dennis Richardson was the man who they elected to head this inquiry. But then, of course, with mounting pressure, the government eventually said, okay, we'll do a Royal Commission now. And so they kept Dennis Richardson on the payroll. But then, of course, they went and hired all the usual people that you do to get a Royal Commission going, which is a multi-million-dollar project, I might add, that simply produces a list of recommendations that governments usually don't implement. So I can't believe I'm saying this, but I guess this guy did actually take a principal role here and say, no, you've got enough manpower without me and you're paying me $5,500 a day. I don't really deserve that. Now,
God damn.
Now, what I have to say about this, though, is that, I think the government wanted it that way because I think they were trying to show the Jewish lobby just how much they were willing to do for them. They're like, we're going to have the most expensive inquiry possible into Bondi, that being a Royal Commission. And not only that, but we're going to have all of these, high-profile bureaucrats and ex-bureaucrats, the most respected public servants in the country. We're going to bring them in on it as well, and we're going to shower them with money just to pour everything we possibly can into this. That's what I think is going on here. And I think we all know that whatever a Royal Commission finds is not going to actually do anything to curb the rise of anti-Semitism, if there is such thing in Australia. This is just this is just throwing the weight around, showing you who's boss. They're saying, all right, if we want a Royal Commission, we fucking get one. And we get the government to spend as much money on it as we possibly can. Anyway, there is an interim report that is due to be handed down very soon. And And Dennis Richardson is also saying that we need more interim reports before we get a wrap-up in December this year. Well, I guess you would. It's funny, I don't think the Jewish lobby is really calling for that, though. They're happy just to wait until everything is done and you have that final list of recommendations. But you know what it definitely won't say? It definitely won't say that the actions of the Israeli government or the actions of the Australian Jewish lobby have contributed to the rise in anti-Semitism in Australia. I can definitely give you that guarantee. Even though they would be the two main drivers, that and, just general Jewish behavior, it won't say a thing about that. Okay, now...
I think that might be a crime at this point.
Yes, well, it basically is. Notice how careful I am with my language. So, all right, there was a pro-Palestine rally on the weekend in Queensland. They're on. There seems to be at least one of them on every weekend in Australia, and several arrests were made. Why is that? Well, people using the slogans "Globalize the Intifada" and "From the River to the Sea." There was actually one woman out there who had "From the River to the Sea" written across her torso. So, that was pretty blatant. Yes. Dare I say she did that on purpose? I think she wanted to get arrested.
Possibly. I remember some Twitter posts with the explicit intent of "I can fix her."
Well, I mean, that's the closest thing you can get to actually painting a target on yourself, is to do that.
Yes.
Now, they're saying that the police were kind of heavy-handed and targeting protesters to make arrests. But they pointed out that actually their presence there was pretty standard. It was like the amount of police you would expect for a rally of that size. And that's probably true, unfortunately, I got to say. But, of course, they're under orders. They've got to enforce these new hate speech laws, and they've got to actually arrest people using these slogans. Now, these are not people I really care for, I got to say. But the idea of jailing people for slogans, I mean, come on, that's like a defining point of a police state. We live in a police state now, run by Jews. We have Jewish speech codes. Offensive slogans will land you in jail.
To Finney and I, the visage is very funny, but the principle of the matter, it's not.
No, and well, look, here's another example. So, Josh Burns, who is a backbencher for federal Labor, one of the most prominent Jewish politicians, I guess you could say, in the country. He was on a panel the other day where they were discussing the rise of anti-Semitism in Australia. And, well, here's what he said. He said, no matter what happens, or no matter what the Israeli government does, you cannot hold responsible Jewish Australians for whatever your views are of that action. It's just wrong and it's dangerous. And I've seen people, even in my own political organisation, draw that comparison. So in other words, he's saying that you cannot judge Australian Jews by the actions of the Israeli government. Now, saying that, I wonder if he realizes, he's basically implying that what Israel is doing right now in Gaza, and all over the Middle East for that matter, is reprehensible. What did you say?
Is it naughty? Are you saying that it's naughty? Are you saying that it shouldn't be happening?
Yeah, I mean, I heard that they actually struck a hospital in Lebanon the other day that killed 12 doctors. And I'm not sure if they actually released their usual statement saying it was an accident or something, but, we know how much Israelis love targeting hospitals. So
I was going to say, Put me in front of a publishing company that does history books, and you call me Dr. Boaz by how much like I would not even defame, tell the truth about Israel. Like Dr. Boaz did tell the truth about Europeans.
Yeah, but so I mean, Josh Burns is basically saying here, like, yeah, okay, what Israel is doing right now is bad. It is bad, but you can't collectively shame uh, Australian Jews for that. Well, you know what? I think you can, because
Yeah.
the vast majority of Jews around the world, something like 85%, and this includes, what you call liberal Jews or progressive Jews, reform Jews, they're all Zionists, okay? They have a Labour Party in Israel, They used to be a real dominant force. They haven't been for like the past couple of decades, but they're just as Zionist as the Likudniks.
I'll say this,
Um,
like the TRS guys are pretty much spot on. Like one party is like destroy them with missiles, and the other party is destroy them with psychological dismantling.
yeah, that's another example of the kosher sandwich right there. Um, Disagreements among Jews are simply disagreements on tactics to serve Jews. That's what they disagree on. They both have the same goal, though, and that is further the interests of Jews as a group. That that they are absolutely united on. On that point, they are a monolith. All right. Okay, now this story, of course, this one came from the Australian. I'd never heard of this woman, but she goes by the name DJ Haram, and
What?
she's some kind of DJ or electronic music artist. She's some kind of Arab. I'm not sure where she's from. The picture I saw of her, it looks like she forgot to shave her armpits that morning. It wasn't very nice to look at. Um, anyway, she did a show
You and me have
in
faith.
Queensland. She did a show in Queensland that has been referred to as anti-Semitic and scandalous by the Australian Jewish community. So, what did she say? Um, uh, she was talking to the crowd in between songs, and she was saying things like Australia is complicit in an ongoing genocide by Israel. She dared to use the slogan "From the river to the sea." She also
Oh,
said,
terrible,
"Long live the
terrible.
resistance." Um, she said that she would not be a token of shallow diversity while censorship is becoming law and we pretend to live in a democracy. Um, so the organizers of this particular music event have been questioned over their complicity in this and why this woman had their stamp of approval to perform. But the thing is, I mean, did you say anything like fuck Jews or gas the Jews or anything? I don't think in all of those statements that I just read out, she didn't even use the word Jew.
No.
It's not there.
Well, it begged
so,
me to say it.
so,
It was very kosher.
so hold on. Josh Burns says that we're not allowed or we shouldn't link the actions of the Israeli government to Jews as a whole. Well, okay, isn't that what the Jewish lobby is doing here? Because this woman didn't say anything about Jews. She didn't say anything about the Australian Jewish community. She was simply talking about Israel's actions. Now, isn't that the Jewish lobby actually making that link themselves? Making that link between the actions of the Israeli state with Jewish people. We all know that the two are inseparable, okay? And most Jews, be they left or right, support what is going on in the Middle East right now. Okay.
There's a way to make that theme song from Married with Kids work with Judaism and Zionism, right?
You mean Married with Children? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that
I,
show's even like a bit too old for me. I've seen a bit of it.
I saw reruns. But yeah,
I'll
so
give you one fun fact about that. Michael Richards, the guy who played Kramer in
oh,
Seinfeld, he was
the
actually the N-word guy. If you haven't seen that footage, you must.
yeah.
But he was supposed to actually play the role of Al Bundy originally.
Oh man, I don't think you could pull that off. Like that
It's hard
redhead
to imagine.
was hot to trot. I don't think you could. Oh
Yeah, but I mean, everything sort of ended for him when he did that rant against N-words. Um, you know what it
yeah,
was? It was like black people in the crowd who kept like they were either
heckling. Yeah.
heckling or they just kept like talking among themselves. And apparently he had put up with that like night after night, and so like finally he just like blew a fuse and went off at them.
So I was like, okay, so your ethnicity and your ethno-state go together like a horse and carriage. This, I tell you,
Oh,
brother, you can't have one without the other.
very good. All right. All right, let's go to crime. So,
Yeah.
well, some quick stories here. So, tobacco licensing in Victoria, they may now have the power to shut a store down if it's been found to be selling illicit tobacco, illegal tobacco. Um, these are under new laws that have been proposed by the Allen government. Landlords would also have the power to kick out businesses found in breach of tobacco licensing laws. So, yeah, they're getting tough.
Yeah.
In the Northern Territory,
There's gonna I was gonna say there's gonna be some deaths over this.
yeah, I mean there already have been. Organized
Yeah.
crime is well entrenched in this, and you know, I didn't put this in the prep, but I read the other day. Apparently, like federal police intercepted $150,000 worth of illegal melatonin. Right,
What?
melatonin, the stuff that helps you like sleep.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Organized crime is in on that as well? Like supplements?
I've heard Americans speak about like gas station melatonin. But I didn't think it came to the shores over here.
Yeah, it's probably to do with those those like illegal Indian pharmacies that
Yeah.
that ship
Well,
that
again,
stuff.
like a lot of people are damn near stressed. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a market for that.
Oh yeah, there is. But the thing is, though, melatonin you can buy legally. That's not
Yeah, yeah.
restricted. So it just seems weird to me that organized crime would be involved in that when it's a legal product.
I think
Anyway.
it's different strengths. There might be some limitations on that.
Oh, okay, yeah. Maybe we're
Yeah.
not allowed the hard stuff.
Now the hard stuff gives you like a machine gnome dreams.
All right. Okay, so we now have those laws in the Northern Territory where the mandatory minimum sentence for a domestic violence-related murder has gone from 20 years to 25 years. When we spoke about this last week, I was saying that like people from the domestic violence lobby, yes, there is a such thing, said that they didn't support these laws. They said it wouldn't really make a difference. I don't think it would in the heat of the moment. You know, if you find yourself in that difficult position where you're about to kill your wife, you're not really thinking about the mandatory minimum. You know, that I guess is a fair point to make. Okay. Now, do we remember this? We covered this, I think, 2 weeks ago, where
Yeah.
a ship was found near French Polynesia, and it was carrying 5 tons of cocaine. So the French authorities, or the French Polynesian authorities, which basically means islanders, they they went aboard this ship and then they just chucked all the cocaine out. They just, like threw it in the ocean. But they didn't arrest anyone. They said that it was up to either the country that they came from or the country they were going to deal with it. Now, the country they were going to was, Australia. Well, guess what? They put out a distress signal because they had limited fuel and food supplies. And Australian ships, Australian authorities responded to that distress signal. And so they went out there, manned the boat, and arrested them all. And they're all in illegal immigration detention now. So at first, it didn't look like they were going to be prosecuted. They're now in the hands of Australian authorities. So yes, they will be prosecuted.
Well, thank fucking God.
Yeah. Okay, now here's like a bit of a conundrum we're in here in WA. It refers to association laws. Now, sometimes there is restrictions on, say, people who are members of a bikie gang from associating with each other. You actually have a similar thing for child sex offenders. And I assume the reason why is because sometimes they actually plan together what they're going to do. Good example of that was the guy who molested all those children at that Melbourne childcare centre, who of course was a raging homosexual, and he lived with another homosexual. And when they raided the house, they were found to have all of this CSAM that they had actually produced. So, they were working
many
together.
Such cases, unfortunately.
Yeah, this is just one example. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why, you want to stop pedophiles from talking to each other, because they come up with sick, twisted plots like that.
Yeah, we're still burning on that fucking ring going on.
The what?
Oh, there's like a new CSAM ring that one of the detective guys fucking found. But yeah, no,
don't think I've heard of it. So anyway, under the old system in WA, police could warn a child sex offender that another person who was also an offender, and that continuing to associate with that offender could lead to them being fined or even imprisoned. The new laws make it more difficult for police to deliver a similar notice. They require the two child sex offenders to already be interacting or likely to interact. Now, why do we have those laws? Why do they suddenly make that a bit less strict? Well, these laws don't just apply to child sex offenders. They also apply to members of criminal gangs or bikie gangs. So they decided to kind of use these laws to capture members of gangs and bikie clubs. But that actually meant that they started going a bit softer on child sex offenders, which is pretty disgusting. So
again, those should be separate categories because they're separate fields of investigation.
That's the issue here, is that they're just kind of lumped into the same criminal category. So Nick Garan, who's from the Liberal Party, has introduced a bill to address that. It's basically like a loophole that got into the system, it was an oversight. So I certainly hope they do pass legislation to close that loophole. Okay. Oh, Jesus. This next story. Now, this is to do with foster parents. Foster parents who, you want to assume that they should be good, caring, and safe people for foster children to live with until they find their new home. Okay, well...
sorry to interject again. You don't know that there's a fucking fiery story until, Mr. Smooth Operator himself over here makes a fucking fiery tweet about it.
Yeah, well, this one really pissed me off. So, trigger warning on this one.
Yeah.
There was a 79-year-old foster parent who was in the company of two foster children. So, they were living in the same house as this person for a while. The person's name is Regina Arthurell. Now,
Is it?
Regina is not really Regina. I don't know what his original name is, but he's apparently a transgender woman. If you have a look at the picture of him, it's just a guy with a wig, basically. And no, it gets much worse than that. Not only is he a mentally ill tranny, but he's actually been convicted of killing 3 people. Okay? He is a triple murderer and a mentally deranged tranny. He had custody of 2 foster children. What the fuck? And, the point I made on the socials was, the AFP is like obsessed with like people spreading white nationalist talking points on Minecraft and Roblox. Yet at the same time, we have foster parents who have killed multiple people and clearly have derangement and a serious mental illness looking after children.
Yep.
I mean, ask yourselves, do we have our priorities right here where something like this is allowed to happen?
I always say this, welcome to hell. I even spoke to a guy like today about like, what's the future for his son in this world? I always say I'll figure it out. But
yeah, I mean, well, look, that is another reason why we have low fertility rates, because people are like, do I really want to bring a child into this world where they could end up in like the custody of a triple murderer? Like, fuck. It's
because that is a
really
fucking no. Sometimes we laugh at horror, but no, that's a fucking creature.
Yeah. Okay, so
let's go on.
Yeah, there's not much more to go here. So just on guns, the police commissioner has asked the Liberal government in Tasmania to issue further gun restrictions. They want to limit the amount of firearms and ammunition a person can own. Those rules are already there, but they want to tighten them. And they said no. So Tasmania has actually often been seen as like the place to go to if you want to have relaxed gun laws. That's actually why, or at least said to be the reason why, Chopper Reed lived there for a while.
That hunting rabbits video still freaks me the fuck out.
Does that include him, Chopper?
Yeah, that one with the journalist where like he kind of like I know it's a joke and I know it's like all for the camera, but he forces her to play Russian roulette.
Oh yes, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, and he actually puts the gun to her head and just goes click.
Yeah,
but he tells her like there is a slug in the gun. There probably wasn't.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like I hunt, like, what do you do here, Chopper? I hunt rabbits, and it's like sometimes the rabbits are human shaped. I'm just thinking to myself like you're bullshitting.
Yeah, he was full of shit.
Bullshitting.
He admitted he was full of shit. No, like he said that he was directly and indirectly involved in 19 murders. And just before he died, he was like, okay, look, if you want to talk about the ones where I was actually directly involved, there's 4. But after he died, his mates were saying, no, that's not true either. It's just one. It's the Sammy the Turk that he shot outside a Melbourne pub.
Yeah.
Like shot him in the fucking face with a shotgun, I think it was.
There's a documentary about it. I'd employ everyone in the audience to watch it.
Yeah, or just watch the movie, which is somewhat based on his life. Okay, so we've got the South Australian election. I believe that will be this Saturday. So look, we'll bring you a race of the sides. It may not be a live show; it might just be a summary. Sorry, South Australians, we don't know if you warrant a live show, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, this Liberal candidate, Carsten Woodhouse, was really making the headlines in South Australia. So he has now been disendorsed as a Liberal Party candidate, even though their leader, Ashton Hearn, at first was strongly defending him and saying he wasn't going anywhere. Alex Antic, the maverick Liberal senator, was also publicly backing him. Anyway, what did this guy do? Well, he went on an American podcast last year where he called Islam poisonous and wrong. What else? He said he referred to the insanity of the trans agenda. And he also attacked same-sex marriage. Okay.
Hello.
These are actually pretty standard normie conservative talking points that he put out there. He certainly didn't say anything racist or anything like that. He was very careful in that regard. But yeah, after a sustained public campaign against him, he has been disendorsed. And the Liberal Party don't seem to realise that this never does them any favours. It just makes you look weak. Look, they're not going to win anyway.
No.
This will be another Labor landslide. I'll pretty much guarantee you. It doesn't mean that the Liberal Party is dead in South Australia, but they're certainly not winning this election anyway. All right. So Peter Malinauskas, the Hungarian Premier of South Australia, he has admitted that they have not lived up to their promises regarding health and ambulance ramping. He's also very, very sorry about that email. We covered this last week where they released an email from the wrong person because he was a cancer patient who died, who apparently said really, really nice things about the South Australian health system. And then it turned out that email belonged to someone else. Actually, I found out what the name was. They both had the same name. It was Stephen King, funnily enough.
Oh, right.
Weird. Yeah.
Georgie.
He finds it okay, like only a week out from an election, to actually say, yeah, we did fuck up. Usually governments don't do that. They usually defend their position or say, it's not ideal, but it wasn't our fault, something like that. In this case, he is actually putting his hand up for it. Now, here's something interesting.
I like that as a behavior.
I have to go through these two. These two stories that are somewhat amusing to me. But there's an independent MP in South Australia. His name is Nick McBride. And this guy has actually spent the entire election campaign wearing an ankle bracelet. Yes. So, in other words, a police tracker is attached to his leg. Why is that? Well, he's been charged with domestic violence. He apparently beat the crap out of his wife. Yeah, so he beat up his wife last year, apparently. That's what he's charged with. Charges are still pending. He hasn't had a hearing. He hasn't had the trial yet. He is denying it. And he also had similar charges that emerged earlier in 2025. In other words, other domestic disputes.
Okay,
that
so he
happened.
possibly fucking did it, did yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So look, but he said these very profound words to the ABC. He said, "It hasn't helped my campaign. I will admit that." You reckon?
Yeah.
Okay, now the seat of Mount Gambier in South Australia, it is actually vacant right now. So it was held by a guy who used to be in the Liberal Party called Troy Bell. Now, he's actually been on multiple financial related charges for years. I forget when exactly it was, but he was booted out or left the Liberal Party because he had this huge record of allegations of fraud and other financial crimes. But you know where he is right now? He's in jail. He was convicted of fraud and he was put in jail. But you see, because they were only 6 months away from the election, they decided not to have a by-election in his seat of Mount Gambier. So for the past 6 months, Mount Gambier have just had no representative, like political representative in the parliament. But they will finally get one this Saturday.
All right.
Okay. So remember this blackmail sting operation that Peter Malinauskas was involved in? This is where he actually wore a bug and he went and had a meeting with some couple. I forget what it was about. The Australian tried to blow this up into a huge story, but it didn't really go anywhere. Anyway, the woman who claims that Malinauskas was trying to set her up and accuse her of blackmail when she wasn't really engaging in blackmail, she actually filed a $2.3 million lawsuit against Malinauskas, and it's been thrown out. So they were arguing, or she was arguing, that Malinauskas had led a malicious prosecution to damage her reputation. And I should point out, her and her husband were actually charged with blackmail offences, but they were dropped later on. So there we go. Okay. We did cover this last week, so I'll go through this very quickly. I just wanted to read through the quotes here. So last week we covered that the former leader of the Liberal Party in South Australia, David Spears, will actually be recontesting his seat as an independent. And you might remember that only about 10 months ago, he was found guilty of supplying 2 counts of supplying drugs, that being cocaine, and using cocaine
Only
as
guilty.
well. There was a photo that was out where he was like racking up lines of cocaine on like a kitchen bench or something, and he said it was AI generated. No, it wasn't. It was real. He admits it's real now. Anyway, he said this. He said, "I gave this a lot of consideration and I felt I had a reasonable level of support in the community. I feel well in myself and I've got a lot of things I think I can still contribute. I wanted to go to sleep and never wake up at some points. There would be leaks to the media, not necessarily about me, but about things in the party. There was infighting. I just didn't think I could ever get clear air. I don't regret becoming opposition leader because someone needed to pick up the pieces after the 2022 election, but it took a massive personal toll on me." Yeah, I bet. That's quite a fall from grace, if you could call it that. All right.
That's a fucking dive bomb from fucking Grace.
Yeah. I don't know what the hell he's thinking, man. I would just want to like disappear, in circumstances like that. But I don't know, his choice. Okay, so the prospect of making council elections compulsory in Western Australia has been raised again. So this time it is the city of Bustleton.
Oh, shit.
I wonder why. Also, the Shire of Collie. So they're putting pressure on the local government minister, who is Hannah Beasley, daughter of the former opposition leader. Now, I'm not sure what their reasons are this time, but we only really started talking about this in WA when Stephen Wells was running for council. And you want to know which council he ran for? Bustleton, twice.
And it freaked him the fuck out.
Yeah. In fact, we interviewed him last year about that. You can find that on our channel and that. But yeah, the reason why they want this is because they're afraid that, say, an extremist, as they put it, like Stephen Wells, can simply just rally all of his mates to go and vote for him, while everyone else in the council just can't be fuck voting, because, who bothers to vote in a council election? Like, barely anyone. And
to
when
be
people
fair,
do,
it is a tourist town.
yeah. But I mean, they were never talking about this before, Before Stephen Wells was running, like this topic just was never brought up. It just wasn't an issue. No one wanted compulsory voting.
Again, it's one of the things that I brought up as a possibility when I interviewed him the first time. I was like, hey, look, like, you're gonna spook the ever loving fuck out of the local electorate. Like, what do you think is gonna happen?
Yeah, I mean, I asked him about this, and he said that he thinks if this were to happen, if they were to make these compulsory, it would backfire, because people would start voting for protest candidates like him. And they might go, well, okay, I don't care if he's a Nazi. Like, fuck the system. I'm voting for this guy. Spoiler.
They did, by the way.
Yeah.
Even a general, they actually did. Oh, he got a decent margin at least.
Yeah. Okay, so our premier in WA, Roger Cook, he is from the electorate of Kwinana, which is, I don't know, about a half-hour drive away from the city centre, something like that. It is definitely considered to be a working-class area of Perth. Well, guess what? He's moving out of it. Now, I must point out that Mark McGowan, our former premier, he was the member for Rockingham, which is much further away from the city than Kwinana is. And he still managed to live in Rockingham for his entire tenure. Roger Cook is saying that this will allow him to manage the demands of his job, but he denied that this has anything to do with being stuck in freeway traffic. You know what's so ironic about this is there's that part in the city centre, like near Riverside Drive, where you get out, and it's fucking chaos. It's all these merging lanes and people indicating and pushing in front of each other and everything to get onto the main freeway. And when you're there driving in that spot, you can clearly see Parliament House looking over you. Do you know the spot I'm talking about?
Yeah, the looming threat of government.
It's so fitting that they're just lording over you like that. And now I'm just imagining Roger Cook is sitting there on top, on a throne, looking at us all, because he is moving to West Perth, which is, well, actually, Parliament is in West Perth, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I was about to say it's right near it, but no, it's actually in West Perth.
Honestly, I'd like him to stay in crack Rockingham.
No, but look, hey, you're supposed to be a man of the people. You're supposed to represent your constituents. At the very least, you live in your electorate. That has been a long-running convention. And like I said, Mark McGowan never broke it, even though he lived in bloody Rockingham. So
I believe that we should tear down his fucking gates and just make him live in at least Armadale or Rockingham.
Yes, that'd be good. Okay, So,
Could be a funny
if
story.
you thought if you thought you'd heard the last of Clive Palmer, you were wrong. He is 71 years old now, and last year he actually said, "Well, I'm too old for politics." A lot of people agreed. Well, he's saying that in the next federal election, he is going to run the largest campaign he ever has. And he's going to be going for the shit. I had it here. Oh yeah, the seat of Fadden, which is held by the Libs.
Oh,
And he said that he has recently been re-energized by being on the keto diet, jogging, and losing a bunch of weight. No, actually, no. He said I've been running. Like, no, man, a fat 71-year-old like you doesn't go running. It's like not physically possible. You know? Can you imagine Clive Palmer running? I can't even imagine him doing a slow jog. Unfortunately, I've seen him twerk. He did that on some
oh Jesus
bullshit
fucking
radio
Christ.
station.
I was gonna say I can imagine him eating a cheeseburger, but running.
Yeah. You know what? He might send himself to an early grave because I know he's had dieting before, but after a while he fell back into his old habits and just put the weight back on again. And that's actually extremely dangerous. That's what they call yo-yo dieting. You might as well actually just stay fat instead of doing that. So yeah, with all this yo-yo dieting he's doing, he might actually be taken from us before the next election. So he is hoping. But look, he's actually been in and out of court because there's actually a cap on how much you can spend in a campaign. That cap is $117 million, which I think we'd all agree is pretty high. Why would you need to spend any more than that? Anyway, he's been fighting that in court, which you can only assume means that he wants to spend more than $117 million on his next political campaign.
Oh dear fucking Christ.
Okay. Okay, now
I don't like seeing the billboards. The billboards make me upset.
no, I mean, if there was anything good about the last election we had, it was there was no Palmer billboards.
Oh, you didn't go to certain industrial parks. I'll put it that way.
Were they still what in
Yep.
the last election last year?
Yep. Oh yes. And
I thought
literally for the last
United Australia
fucking
Party was deregistered.
Well,
Wasn't
they
his party
still put them up.
deregistered?
Was it like a
Okay.
trumpet of trumpet of whatever the fuck it was?
Oh, Trumpet of Patriots, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute. No, you're right. I didn't see any billboards, but that was it. He had the Trumpet of Patriots because he wasn't able to re-register the United Australia Party. That's right. Okay, but this now he's re-registered the United Australia Party, so that the Trumpet of Patriots thing is gone. All right.
I'm gonna have to see his fucking fat face again.
Unfortunately, yeah. Okay, so the NACC, the Corruption Commission, has handed down what is a long-awaited report on RoboDebt. Now, this report, if you don't know what that was basically when a whole bunch of people who received Centrelink payments were asked to pay the money back, and in many cases they actually didn't owe money. It was like some kind of tech error, and it became known as RoboDebt. Anyway, the report points the finger at two senior public servants who they say were engaged in serious corrupt conduct, while exonerating Scott Morrison because he was the Minister for Social Services when that scheme got underway. So they've named them. Mark Withnell and Serena Wilson said they engaged in corrupt conduct of a serious nature by misleading others. So the program wrongfully recovered $750 million from more than 370,000 people using an automated income averaging system. And yeah, much of that money was actually not owed. So yeah. Now, there was actually
suicides.
Yes, I was just about to mention that. Some people did say that they had family members who were actually so distraught about this because they thought, how am I going to pay back this money, and how am I going to, afford to keep myself alive? That, yeah, unfortunately, they actually took their own lives. So, I just say, always take with a grain of salt, like what artificial intelligence can do. I know this was not generative AI, but I'm just saying that, you can't always rely on machines to get everything right.
Yeah, this wasn't an LLM, but hallucinations of machines can have real world consequences.
Yeah, big time. Okay, well, speaking of tech, there are a whole bunch of adult websites now where you have to verify your age. So they will block you, or they'll blur the images or something. So The Guardian, which is where I got this story from, they've confirmed that RedTube, YouTube, and Tube8, I had never heard of that one, they've all had notices on their sites saying that they're not currently accepting new account registrations in your region. That means Australia. So other sites, though, you can still get in if you verify your age. And of course, a lot of people don't want to do that because that involves handing over your ID. And, if there's some kind of a data breach, that might be embarrassing for you. So you know what? I think this is a good thing. It would basically mean that you'll have less people looking at porn. And that's a good thing.
Never been much of a porn guy.
All right. There is a huge reluctance of most states in Australia. 6 out of the states and territory jurisdictions we have refuse to release data on teenagers who are put on puberty blockers and what do you call it? HRT, hormone replacement therapy.
Therapy, yes.
So
there's intense hormones.
Yeah, you're mutilating a child, like, chemically, and you're removing their genitals and stuff. So yeah, most states will not release this data. I wonder why. So Tony Abbott actually came out recently talking about this because he used to be health minister as well as prime minister. He was health minister under John Howard, and just saying that, this kind of secrecy in regarding medical information is just unheard of. There's never been any reluctance to release figures on cancer patients or whatever. But for some reason, when it comes to this issue, most states are basically refusing to say that they are giving X amount of puberty blockers to X amount of children. They won't tell you. I wonder why. Dare I say there is an absolute shit ton of them who are on them, and not only that, but they end up regretting it later. Because the vast majority of children who do have what we call gender dysphoria end up losing those feelings later on. A lot of the time it's just a fad. And unfortunately, sometimes it's a fad encouraged by their parents. And then you have really like tragic cases where the parents might actually be broken up and the mother is trying to put them on puberty blockers and the
Oh
dad is
God.
taking them to court to stop that from happening. And the man is told that he's just being like a controlling patriarch and a transphobe.
I know
No,
like 35
just doesn't want
cases
his
of that
son's balls to be
personally.
cut off.
Yeah, I was
Sorry.
gonna say like I know 35 cases of that personally, but I guess like the most famous case for the audience would be the Texas case.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot like that out there. It's not a unique story, unfortunately. Um, okay, so look, Tony Abbott has called for a full national inquiry into the matter. He said the level of official conformism is becoming a national scandal, especially as more and more information emerges about the dangers of irreversible and highly damaging treatment of minors. The recent report that Dr. Andrew Amos has effectively been banned from practice because he's spoken out against the potential for medical child abuse. Yeah, so this was a report that was put out talking about how there are many children who are basically going through a form of medical child abuse. It is disgusting. And like the only government who seems to be doing anything about it is the Queensland LNP. Their health minister put a freeze on the use of puberty blockers. It's one of the very rare times I'll commend an Australian government. Okay, finally, the Brittany Higgins debacle, where she was given $2.4 million from the Commonwealth. This was reached in mediation, where many of the interested parties were not actually there. They were asked not to attend the mediation. Anyway, this wasn't just because, she was supposedly raped in Parliament House. It was also to do with like what she said was workplace bullying that happened in two different departments that she worked in. Anyway, Linda Reynolds, her former boss, former senator,
The one where she
she
appeared naked, spread out on a couch.
yeah. So Brittany Higgins was found in her office, in Linda Reynolds' office, completely nude on the couch and totally drunk or hungover. Anyway, she's been suing the government over this, mainly because of the fact that she was frozen out of the proceedings. She wanted to be there for the mediation between the Commonwealth government and Brittany Higgins, and she wasn't allowed. Neither was Michaelia Cash, who was another one of Brittany Higgins' bosses in a different department. She did actually work for two different departments. And the payout was to do with her experience working in both. It wasn't just the alleged rape. Anyway, that mediation session lasted like a few hours, and boom, $2.4 million just handed out. Now, the Labor government who, brokered this, they're actually arguing that they had the right to tell Linda Reynolds to stay out, to not be part of that mediation session. Well, perhaps ironically, the federal court, who was hearing this lawsuit, has ordered mediation between Linda Reynolds and the Commonwealth government. So, quite ironically, they're being told they actually have to sit down together and work something out. I doubt she will get as generous a payout as Brittany Higgins did. Always remember, though, when Linda Reynolds took Brittany Higgins to court and her partner David Shiraz, she totally cleaned them out. In fact, they both declared bankruptcy.
Yes.
And they had to sell their house in France. So, yeah. all that money they gained from the scheme, it was all basically taken away from them again.
I love that entire saga nuked the defamation laws within Australia.
I still think it is too easy to sue someone for defamation. I kind of lean a bit more on the free speech side in that area. However, no, what happened in that case was completely fair. Linda Reynolds was unquestionably defamed. The idea was put out there that she knew about the rape and that she actively tried to cover it up. And that is just not true. And, it doesn't, in terms of defamation, it doesn't get much more serious than that, does it? Like trying to cover up a rape,
Oh, yeah, of course.
So,
I blame Brittany Higgins for the actual, nuking of it. Honestly, Linda Reynolds, I don't know. Maybe you shouldn't have kept Brittany as a fucking staffer.
Oh, look, she had no idea this kind of shit was going to happen. No one did. Anyway, I do hope that Linda Reynolds gets, a payout from this. Not because I think she was a great senator or anything like that, but just because she was absolutely put through the grinder through no fault of her own. All right. So, yeah, a little bit of a shorter episode than we usually do. We're still pretty close to 2.5 hours. So, yeah, thanks for joining us. We'll try to bring you a wrap-up of the South Australian election. I don't know, probably record that on Sunday. Maybe we'll do it on on Saturday. If you can't make it in Aussie, that's okay. I'll just do a wrap-up myself. But yeah, we do try to bring you those episodes. Okay, cool. We'll try to make it a shortish one. Anyway, guys, check out our stuff over at theracer.biz, and we'll see you next week.